of all the things here, how it ended, starting with that same game that Joe Milton started and everyone else was hearing, oh, wow, all the coaches might be fired, to Robyn Glazer, to the meeting that happened Monday morning. What is the most interesting thing to you about everything we put here in that part of the story?
Well, I think a lot of people are touching on the Robyn Glazer aspect the most, as far as like aggregators and people are kind of pulling stuff out of the story. And yeah, I mean, I heard from multiple people that, you know, Glazer was someone whose job was kind of to go along being like, do we have to spend this much on this? Do we have to spend as much on this? And that's what organizations do it in general. But it did become a little bit taxing for people in the building for her to be doing that. But I mean, even since then, like, that's not the reason that she was out. It just wasn't necessarily a great fit with a new regime. And there were other aspects last season where the Patriots were, let's say, like overspending on things bigger than what the Patriots were cutting costs on. And I think that the Patriots right now are having to deal with some of that, where like some of the assistant coaches that they brought in last season were signed to long-term deals for more money than they probably should have been making, simply because the Patriots were having a hard time finding people to fill some of those roles. So now the Patriots are sitting there being like, all right, now we have to pay these guys for this long. Well, we also have to sign our own coaches. We have to sign our own players. So it was a number of different factors, but yeah, I think that like it was probably an untenable situation given how much power that Robyn Glazer had gotten last season with the Patriots and the amount that then it would have to be scaled back. It was scaled back already last year, and then the amount that was probably going to have to be scaled back even more this year.
And she had a useful background and skill set in terms of executing contracts and drawing them up that
Right.
was part of the reason for her rise in the organization to where she got VP of whatever.
Right.
And internally never got credit for some of that in a way that I'm
Right.
not saying she should have, but I
Right.
think from her standpoint, wanted to do more, receive more credit, and Jerod
Yeah.
Mayo named her his own advisor to the head coach soon after he got the job a year ago. The flip side of that is when Teddy Bruschi hinted after Vrabel got hired that there are some people in the building who need to be told, stop, you don't know what you're doing. That was Robyn Glazer. Like her
Yeah.
influence and her reach into football operations honestly kind of like repulsed some people who were like, this is too much. This is not your area of business. There are some people that I heard after she got that job described her as being like close to a nightmare, and you hear different things. Like Devin McCourty's come on and said she was a great friend, did certain things. Other people who noted the contracts, things behind the scene in the community never got highlighted. So for me to run with just one or the other is not fair to paint a whole picture. But when you gather more intel, it was just very clear that this is someone who wanted more than she had earned and didn't fit her skill set. And so Vrabel comes in and says, not only are we just going to do things my way, we're going to do it my way with my people. And for you to be kind of an extension of ownership, someone who has more say in football in a way that you really shouldn't, but took advantage of a power vacuum and a staff that didn't know what it was doing from the top down once Belichick left. And people even in the front office go like, oh, Bill was doing a lot of stuff that we didn't even know about. Like, we just had to pay
That's
for
a big factor there. Yeah.
And she jumped into that void in a way that was not helpful to the whole organization. So she's out.
Right. Because last year, it was also the hiring process of Jerod Mayo, someone who was as inexperienced as he was, where prior to that, it was Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, Bill Belichick, clear layout at the top of the organization. Last year, it was Robert Kraft, Jonathan Kraft, crap, who's number 3? Because like Jerod Mayo's not experienced enough to do it. Elliot Wolf didn't even get the EVP title until what was that, like May or April, whatever, mid-May. So like you can't throw him into the third spot. So then it's kind of like, okay, Robyn Glazer's the number 3 because she is a EVP or VP or whatever she is in the organization, and she took on so much, and Elliot Wolf took on so much that Jerod Mayo didn't know, that now a lot of people that I've spoken to are relieved that now it's back to being a clear-cut, organizational structure where you've got Robert Kraft, you've got Jonathan Kraft, and then you've got Mike Vrabel as that number 3 guy. And it simplifies so much in the building to have Mike Vrabel as someone who's as experienced as he is and has as much command as he is and as decisive as he is to be that third most powerful person in the building.
Yes. And we'll get to Vrabel in a second.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jerod Mayo, so hours before the finale against the Bills, we all know Adam Schefter stated he was leading out on the fact that Jerod Mayo could keep his job in 2024. You and I both know Adam doesn't guess. Okay, so for him to be leading out is like, I know something you don't. And according to someone that we talked to, certain players saw that report and shared it with some of the assistants before kickoff, who then figured, well, I'm probably gone. Because of course you would be if the head coach is out. So players are not only playing with that knowledge. You had assistant coaches going, this will be my last game in New England.
Right.
Not to mention, this report comes out less than 11 months after Mayo announces in his first staff meeting. This is a detail that we just got this week. Would have loved to have had a month ago, but just got this week. He assured the assistants, everyone who had come in from Cleveland and on defense, this is a 3-year rebuild. We're going to construct the roster accordingly and use that time. But as Drake May wasn't ready immediately to start week 1, had they known that they could have been fired at the end of year 1 of this supposed year 3-year plan, they probably would have turned to May earlier, understanding that their job security is tied to his performance and what the future looks like. And as we went into the season, you and I both heard the front office gets frustrated. Like, why isn't Layden Robinson playing a little bit more? Why is Javon Baker still on the shelf? Why are you making these all of these short-term kind of decisions and leaning on veterans when we're all trying to find the plan? The reason was the coaches were trying to do something to improve the record, to sell themselves in that point. And there's none of that's totally surprising that you have some politicking going on and ownership changes its mind and people who aren't involved in football have a lot of say in that, as we just touched upon with Robyn Glazer. The thing that after this happens, also on Monday morning in that meeting where the Crafts are addressing the team, staff, and players, Jerod Mayo spoke up, being like, what the hell? And as someone told us, it's the most awkward 3 minutes of their lives. Now, there are a lot of assistants and the head coach who are still out of football. This was not a good staff. Vrabel was a better option. This isn't to say anything should have changed. But when we talk about the bungling of a head coach being fired, from leaking it to an insider who lets players and coaches indirectly know, and then not having great answers for the brother of the guy that you just fired immediately after the game was over, this was a mess more than you and I knew, reported, anyone saw, and it's unfortunate, and we're all moving on. But just like, when you ask, can the Patriots get their shit together? And they are now with Vrabel, it just further highlights how much that the Crafts leaned on and used Belichick as a screen, as a meat shield for everything that was going on to run the show. And when it's left to their own decisions and powers, it's been a mess.
Yeah, 100%. And one other thing I would throw in about last season is that there seems to be such a sense of relief that the Patriots have a coaching staff now that is more experienced, that they can trust to develop players, because that did seem like it was a big issue for the Patriots. It's been repeated a bunch of times, but especially at wide receiver last year, where Jalen Polk might not have like fully helped himself last situation, but he also wasn't helped from a developmental phase with the coaches that the Patriots had. But yeah, a lot of interesting stuff that people are still interested in about the 2024 season that's still out there, but it seems like we were able to kind of close in some of the gaps there.
Yeah, and the one thing that came from Elliot Wolf this week, who, of course, you know, as I've been told, was putting out a lot of fires around Jerod Mayo and Robyn Glazer and trying to get things going, to where he missed the owners' meetings in December. And multiple people are asking me, like, what the hell's going on? Why is Matt Groh walking around here? Is he said this week that the Patriots were not thorough enough ahead of free agency, okay, which is something you rarely hear admitted. The interpretation from people within the team and outside the league, or outside but in the league, was that was a shot at the coaches they had last year who didn't know enough, weren't familiar with the players that they were bringing in. And we saw, obviously, that play out with Chooks, KJ Osborne, other guys. And the next comment within that same answer was how Elliott saw a great opportunity with this new staff that you just talked about. Has a lot more experience, much bigger networks. They're just better coaches. And you could argue whether or not that's the coach's job to provide scouting reports or have that kind of intel.
For sure.
But I don't think that those two comments of we weren't thorough enough, but now we can, thanks to the coaches, we're independent. Like, those two are related. And look, Wolf has got to do a better job. I've said he's the person under the most pressure this offseason. And the stuff about, it wasn't Jalen Polk's fault. Organizationally, we put too much on his plate. Other people were like, his attitude kind of sucked. Oh, and Tyler Hughes, from multiple people within the team, was the worst receivers coach folks had been around in a long, long time. And that's part of the reason he's gone.
Yeah, I mean, it was just a situation where Jerod Mayo didn't know enough people, wasn't able to bring in experienced coaches, and that's one of the positions that, unfortunately for the Patriots, since they drafted 2 players at the position, fell by the wayside last year.
What's going on, everyone? Tayler Kyles here for CLNS Media with a very exciting announcement. Here at Patriots Press Pass, we will be introducing bonus tiers. Now, this will not affect any of the content that hopefully you've grown to know and love over here at Patriots Press Pass. It's all going to be some brand new stuff and extras so we can connect with you more and also provide you some more in-depth and high-quality content. Hopefully, you guys are going to like it. Here are the tiers and what you should be expecting from all these new bonuses. At Tier 1, we've got Rookie Starter. That'll come with ad-free content, early access to videos, 5% off of all merchandise, and even custom emojis. At Tier 2, we've got All Pro. Once again, ad-free content, early access, 10% off merchandise, custom emojis, but that'll also come with player profile film reviews and draft profiles. At Tier 3, we've got GOAT status. Same as all the other tiers, but it's going to be 20% off of all merchandise, and we're also going to have custom segments, Discord chat rooms with myself and other show hosts, as well as live film reviews with myself and whomever we've got on the podcast for that day, hoping to have some pretty fun guests.